Hello, hello, what's up? Good morning, everybody. We are going to jump on in just 1 second here. Here we go. Awesome. Good morning. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm so glad you're there. What's up? Just getting things set up here on my end as well. This is always like a whole process over here. But I'm very excited to welcome you to another episode of The Money Tree, of finding opportunity in a time of uncertainty, of figuring out how can we navigate this world that's completely different and chaotic and disordered, yet also presents so much possibility. If we haven't met before, my name is Chris Gillibo. So glad you're here. Looks like we've got lots of folks coming in, including some new folks. Hey, welcome if it's your first time watching the stream. Doing this every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific. That would be 12 p.m. Eastern, and other times in different places. Great to see you all. Great to see folks from LA, Orange County, self-quarantine, Cleveland, Ohio, London, Germany, Northern Virginia, Philly, Florida, Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam. Awesome. Alberta, Canada. Wait, wrong show. It's okay. If you're in Vietnam, it's good. Good. Sacramento, etc. Northern Colorado. We got some fun stuff today. I'm going to talk a bit about the third way. What does that mean? Is it, in fact, a new punk band? Is it a cult? Is it a new coffee blend, that comes to us from, Honduras or something? Or is it, in fact, a different pathway to financial freedom that I have written about in my new book? Where is my new book? Come on, Chris. Gotta be prepared here. My new book is called The Money Tree. Let's see here. Swap this out. This book, I always have to wake up. Yesterday I got up at 3:30 in the morning to do this breakfast TV in Toronto. And so then I went back to bed for 2 hours and got up. This morning I actually slept reasonably well. And then I was preparing for all this stuff, but then things happen in the 3 minutes before I go live. And it always makes me just running around and stuff. But this is how it works when you do it live. So glad you are here. So we got some fun stuff. Going to talk about the third way. Also, my genius developer, who I've mentioned several times, Nikki Hajal, he's on the stream today. We have been working on something kind of nonstop for, several weeks now. And it's just about ready. So we're actually going to do not quite a live demo today. We're going to try to do a live demo tomorrow, but we're going to mention exactly what it is and how you can check it out. You can be the very first people to check it out. So if for some reason I almost forget that at the end, remind me and we will go to it. All right. So every day has a question. Let me go to this question of the day. I would love to know your answer to this question. And by the way, for those who are new, you can pop in questions any time during the chat. I will kind of come back and forth to them as I go along. I've got a lesson that I'll be teaching, but I kind of engage with people. And so it's one part teaching, conversation, one part interaction and such. So here is the question of the day. Think about this. Would love to know your answer. Feel free to share it. If your house was on fire, what 3 things would you try to save? Okay. So your house is on fire and you're going to be okay. First of all humans and pets and all forms of life in your house are fine. Your fish made it out okay, but you have a chance to save 3 things. So I'm curious what those would be. Is it something practical? Is it something sentimental? Is it something entirely different? So let me know your answer to that question if you have one. And while you're doing that, tell you a bit about how it works. So the text that we're using for this series, again, every weekday, is The Money Tree, this new book about finding the fortune in your own backyard. I was supposed to do a 40-city book tour, and of course I wasn't able to. And so I decided to start something new, take a creative risk and just have these daily conversations with people. So I'm talking a bit about the money tree, but in a context of how can people apply it. So nothing is for sale. I'm talking about the book, of course, but there's no course, there's no membership site, there's no back end. This is all just, about community. And every day has a question of the day, like I just shared with you, a short lesson and a daily challenge. Okay, so that is how it works. By the way, if you are, whether you have just joined or if you've been watching a while, it'd be awesome if you could click the little thumbs up button. I think it's actually down there. The thumbs up button, just to show that, show YouTube that this is actually interesting. And if you have not subscribed, be sure you subscribe. You can do that there as well and click the little bell button. And that way you'll get notified whenever we go live every weekday. It's just 5 days a week. I'm not uploading a ton of other videos. This is the whole focus this time. And if you're watching later, my hope is that everything I do here will be somewhat relevant and timeless, or at least, let's say, 80% of it. Okay, I'm just curious if anybody has answers to this. Oh, we got a bunch of people with answers. Awesome. The cat, your PCs, legal documents. Okay, so the cat's okay. The cat's already out, so you get an extra item. But you said PCs, so that sounds like more than one item. So you're going to take your PCs, legal documents. Rachel's going to take her teddy bear, phone, and underwear. Marion, old photos, laptop, passport. Another cat is making it out. Don't worry, all cats are okay. It's all right. Emergency evacuation bag. It has all my cards, hard drives, and passport insurance. Wow, you were prepared. KS is ready to go. That is awesome. Who actually has an emergency bag? Like, who has like a go bag and they're like ready to, like, you know, run for the hills or whatever? Ivan's going to bring his journals, paintings, and my dad's bass guitar. Kathy's bringing laptop, credit cards, photos. Higher level tennis. I need to be more prepared for fires. Family photos, laptop, my lighting design work. Vin is bringing a bathing suit, a snack, and my Kindle. See you at the beach. That's awesome. Doodle reads my son's puppets, laptop. Lots of great answers there. Nikki would just take his Code Zone sign. That's right. That's all he needs. Nikki works with a sign in the background that says Code Zone, conveniently designating the zone for doing coding. Yes. So, I mean, I was trying to think, do I have a creative answer for this? And sometimes I do, since I write the questions, you know. But often I'm just curious, like, what you might think. And sometimes this ties into the lesson, and sometimes it's just like, I'm curious, what, you know, how do you think about this? What's your approach? So for me, I don't think I actually have a great answer. I was like, well, I'm going to bring my laptop, of course. But these days, so much of my work, and maybe yours too, is online. Like, it's stored safely somewhere, so that if I lost my laptop, I would still be able to recover most of it, which is very different than the way things used to be, right? I mean, this is one great advancement of technology, that I'm not worried about losing a ton of documents these days. But I would still probably grab my laptop. I would bring my passport, and I probably would bring at least one thing. Well, if I only have 3 things, I would bring at least one thing of sentimental value. So I had a couple different ideas for that. So nothing super creative, but probably good to know what it is you're going to bring. Okay, so we talked a little bit yesterday about making $1,000 in a short period of time, and what that would look like. A couple of different options for reselling, both in terms of reselling your own stuff and also potentially reselling other people's stuff. I did a little conversation last night on Twitter Live as well, Twitter Live and Periscope, and some people were asking me, you know, more about what industries are poised for growth during this time, or what industries are, you know, interesting or might be good to kind of pay attention to. And as I've mentioned here on this stream, I think it's more important to understand, you know, the analysis process of how you can answer that question for yourself, because the times are always changing, and what's relevant now isn't going to be relevant, you know, a month from now, or 3 months from now even, or 6 months from now, and so on. But I did start making a list, because I've talked about it a couple of times, but I'm going to make an official list of you know, industries that are actually like really taking off, you know, during this time. So the obvious answer is web conferencing and Zoom, like we've talked about, but also online education of all kinds. You know, Creative Live. I was just doing this virtual book launch a week or so ago with my friend Chase Jarvis. He said their stats are like way up. You know, more and more people are congregating online, wanting to learn stuff. Liquor stores, you know, comfort food, ice cream delivery. In fact, delivery services in general, like DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates, etc. You know, they're doing pretty well during this time because so many more people are ordering. And I also thought about, you know, all kinds of things related to wellness, which before I've talked about exercise, like at-home exercise, which is still relevant, but also mental health and just well-being, and in that regard, in terms of community, connection, spirituality, all kinds of stuff like that. So we're going to make more of a list as we go along. Just looking at the comments here. Since the cat is safe, take my phone. Has my Kindle and Audible library. That's great. But you know what, Cindy, here's the cool thing. Like, and I'm sure you know this as well. Like, of course, you don't want to lose your phone, but your Kindle and Audible library are safely available to you, you know, from any device. So if you had to get a new phone, you would still have, you know, all of those things. David says bringing divorce papers, taking no chances. Hey, gotta, you know, respect that. Okay. So let's talk a bit about I want to talk about today is the third way. So I mentioned this a couple of times. If you have read The Money Tree, then you might know about this already. Let me know if you have read it or if you're reading it right now. It's really fun to see people's photos posted on Instagram and elsewhere of the book and just get some emails from people about it. But when I wrote this book, I'm telling a story, right? I'm telling teaching through the form of a narrative. And in this book, there's a group called The Third Way. And this group meets every week. The main character, Jake, learns about this group because he's in this financial pinch and ends up going to the first meeting or his first meeting. And, everybody at the group is trying to find a way to make extra money for themselves. They're trying to find a way to make extra money, either to quit their job or just because they want to do something different or because they want to create a backup plan, more security like so many people are doing right now, as they should be. Or just because they want to have some kind of creative income generating project that is a bit different than their day job. And the group is called The Third Way. So later in the book there's some exploration of this in much more detail, but wanted to explain what is the third way, what is the first way, what's the second way. So the first way of starting a business, as you can see here, it's kind of like what we think about in terms of a classic old school model of I'm going to go to the bank and borrow money to open the dry cleaners. It's like a mom and pop shop. And so there could be lots of different examples of that. And to do this, it requires capital. It requires either your own money or somebody else's money. Like if you don't have money, you have to borrow it somehow from the bank, from your parents, from your credit cards, whatever it is. And it definitely is going to involve risk as well because it might not work. Lots of coffee shops go out of business. Lots of retail stores are struggling right now, but even aside from this environment, retail is a tough market to be in. And then it also has a long time frame. Like even if it is going to work, you might not know for a while. You might have to wait years before you see, okay, is this business actually going to be profitable long-term, et cetera. So those are some characteristics of the first way. And the second way is what everybody's also familiar with, either through firsthand experience or just by watching shows like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den if you're outside the US. And the startup world, is all about, access to other forms of resources. So it's also about access to capital in the sense that you need investors and you're on this quest, not just to build the most amazing product, not just to, serve customers, not just to grow the business for yourself, but your quest is often tied to obtaining investment. Your quest is about how can I convince people to, invest money, to provide X amount of money in exchange for ownership. So you're giving that up, of course. It also involves risk, naturally. So many startups fail. And then just the act of having the right connections is a resource in itself. It's an asset, right? Like if you have access to the right connections, then in lots of ways you're already more wealthy or you have more power than other people. So requires capital, requires risk, requires connections. It doesn't mean that nobody should have a startup. It doesn't mean that no one should open a coffee shop. I believe very much in supporting small businesses, but it's just like if you're going to do something for yourself, be aware of these characteristics, going into it. What do these approaches have in common, both the first way and the second way, even though they're quite different? You can imagine like a mom and pop, store in Kansas and a, Silicon Valley app startup, but they're both dependent on other people. Like they're both dependent on other people, which effectively means that they are dependent on something outside your control. Now, a big part of what I hope to teach people is, and myself, it's not just teach, this is like a two-way process, to be clear. A big part of what I hope to share and experience more myself and just contribute to is a sense of there's so much stuff that's outside our control. What is within our control? There's a lot of things that we cannot change right now in life in general, but in particular during this weird time of COVID-19. There's so much that's outside our control. What is within our control? And don't we want to maximize that? If it's a very small percentage, why don't we want to actually try to invest more in things that are within our control, especially when it comes to financial security? Now that's what this whole series is about, by the way, financial security, which allows you to do more of what is important to you. Okay, let's go back here. So both those approaches are dependent on something outside your control. So what's the alternative, or as I call it, the solution? It is the third way. The third way, which, if you have read the book or if you're going through the book right now, share a few characteristics, pretty simple. And you might be familiar with my work from other stuff too, from Side Hustle School or, the Side Hustle book or, whatever else. This is what I have been living, my whole life, my whole adult life for 20 years. And for the past 11 years, really connecting with lots of people all over the world who are living out these values. And these values are, really simple, really basic. Start quickly, without spending money and using your existing skills or knowledge. So if you contrast, each of these characteristics with, the first way and the second way, you can kind of see the difference. Start quickly. Okay, well, it takes a long time, to have that mom and pop shop without spending money. Well, you have to spend money for, both of the other models. And using your existing skills and knowledge, which may be true, in the other models, depending on what you're doing. But I include this because I think a lot of people have this belief, well, I know a lot of people have this belief that they have to acquire a lot of business knowledge. They have to go get an MBA or otherwise go through some kind of specialized training to be able to start an income generating project. And everything that I have been sharing and trying to shine a spotlight on for years, really is just highlighting the fact that there are so many examples of people who have not had specialized business knowledge. They actually end up doing better in many cases than people who have gone and got an MBA or otherwise gone through a formal learning track. Because when you get an MBA, for the most part, maybe this is changing in some places, but for the most part, it's training you to be a corporate manager. It's training you to be a mid-level manager in a Fortune 500 company, whereas Side Hustle School, and not just my resources, but lots of other resources as well, are showing people what you can do right now with the skills you have, with the knowledge that you have. And so everything that I teach on Side Hustle School or elsewhere in the books, it's really about like shoring up that knowledge. It's really about extracting or building upon or saying, okay, maybe you need to learn a little bit about copywriting, or you need to figure out how to make an offer, how do you make a product, a service, et cetera. Maybe you need to learn what makes for a profitable idea. Maybe you need to learn about marketing and, how to identify your ideal customer and how to find those ideal customers. But these skills are all, I don't want to say they're easy, but they're all things that you can learn. They're not mysteries. The real value is not in any of those skills. The real value is in the knowledge that you have had, the experience that you've had throughout your life, which is why I try to highlight lots and lots of different stories through the podcast, because it just shows that there's all kinds of ways to do this. So I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. If you have comments or questions as we go along, feel free to post them. I will return to them in just a moment. So a couple of examples from Side Hustle School. And whenever I mention an example from the podcast, you can always learn more about it by going to the episode number. In this case, the example I'm mentioning is episode 175. So you just go to sidehustleschool.com/175. And of course, you can also listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. But if you're looking for a certain number, we're on episode 1200 now. So it might be easier to just go to that URL rather than scrolling through, whatever that is, 1,000 different episodes in Spotify or whatever. So first example, lawyer earns $400 a month with stock music side hustle. This is just a really simple thing. Like, this guy is a lawyer. He is a musician on the side. He's using GarageBand and other free software or very low-cost software to make stock music, which is then used, for commercials or for web use so that people don't run into copyright issues and so on. People pay a fee, to access a database that he uploads his stock music to, and they pay him a royalty or a commission, every month. So $400 a month. Not a huge amount of money, but he's doing something that he enjoys. He's going to be messing around with GarageBand anyway. So now he's found a way to make these tracks. He's learning and having fun. And at the same time, he's earning, what is essentially passive income, at least when it works. Now, he's still continuing to upload tracks and such, but if some of them, go well, if some of them become popular, then he's going to get paid month after month, for those tracks. So again, he was a lawyer, but the lawyer, skill is not really relevant here. He was just a musician, and he learned to upload, tracks to this database, not that complicated, and now it's bringing in some extra money. Example number two, also very much a lifestyle business, sidehustleschool.com/96. This is episode 96. Instagram calligraphy project earns $9,000 in year one. And I think this was about a corporate employee who, calligraphy was her hobby. And so she starts posting more of it on Instagram. She starts getting orders and so on, and built it from there. Not a huge business, but it doesn't have to be a huge business. Again, this is something that she likes to do and has found a way to share it with people. So the process or the pathway in going from, I have this idea to do calligraphy to sharing it online and then learning how to take orders, do customer service, et cetera. It's a pretty replicable, easy pathway to follow, or let's say simple. So I try not to say easy. And one more example. So we're kind of going from $400 a month to $9,000 in a year. This person makes $100,000, which is not to say that this story is better. Like I try to highlight stories from a range of experiences, and $400 a month is still very notable, especially to somebody who's never done this kind of thing before. But in this case, this is episode 548. It was about a Google employee who makes $100,000 using Fiverr, and we have actually now had, I think, 4 stories on the podcast of people using Fiverr, which is traditionally thought of as a low-cost service provider, a low-cost collection of service providers. Originally, it started as every service was $5, and now you can have different prices and such. But we have had at least 4 stories of people that have earned $100,000 or more using what is traditionally thought of as this low-cost kind of thing, or low-cost, low-profit, low-income earning thing. And so in this case, he had some specialized knowledge in product marketing. I believe it was related to YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. And so he offered these specialized services there, and as you can see, built a big business. If you ever want to know the whole story behind these things, the reason why I mentioned the episode number is I'm just kind of giving you some highlights here. But if you go to the podcast, then you can hear usually about 8 minutes, like 6 to 8 minutes about any particular story, how this person got their idea, how do they navigate the logistics, what happened along the way, what went well, what didn't go well, et cetera. So you can access all of that in the podcast. So that's the third way. And, in some ways, like I said, it's what I have been talking about for years and years. I just wanted to crystallize it and say, give it this name essentially. But you can think of it as side hustling. You can think of it as micro entrepreneurship, lifestyle business, lifestyle entrepreneurship. It doesn't really matter. The point is those characteristics are, you're starting quickly. You're not spending a lot of money, and you are using a skill that you already have. So I hope as we go through this series, we can highlight lots of different people who are doing projects like this, perhaps in real time. So as I've said before, feel free to share your projects with me, and we can talk about them as we go. I'm going to start doing website critiques this week, as mentioned. All right, let me know if you have any questions or comments. We're going to go to the daily challenge here in just a moment. I'm going to scroll back and see what people have said. Awesome. A couple people are reading the book. Amazing. Thank you. Let me know what you think. We've had some Amazon supply issues. Shocking, just like everything that's being sold on Amazon. But it is still there. And of course, there's an Audible version and ebook version on Kindle and other ebook formats as well. And you can also support your local bookstore, which is always good. Most local bookstores these days, one hopes, have websites where you can actually go and order a book and support them. KS said, you watched The Minimalist. Oh yeah, I did The Minimalist podcast. I recorded that maybe a couple weeks ago, and it just went live today. Those guys are great. They always do really high quality production value. So I enjoyed my conversation with them. It was actually supposed to be recorded in Los Angeles at their studio, but nothing is happening in real life these days. Well, I shouldn't say in real life. Nothing is happening that's not remote these days. So that was fun. Doodle Reed says, I'm using my existing skills to indie publish fun hands-on books, but I do find it hard to market the product I create. That is absolutely something we could talk about. So feel free to let me know what kind of hands-on books you're publishing. We can talk it out, maybe look at it as a group. David has a suggestion for you there as well. Effie says, does anyone have practical exercises I can do to brainstorm on my skills/knowledge? Not even for monetization. I'm burnt out from experience and really struggle with reflecting on my skills that are valuable and transferable. Yeah, that's a great question. I have a few different exercises, but you ask the group, so maybe somebody else does too, which is great. Often we have more knowledge together or collectively than any one person does. I always think the starting point, you kind of identified it there when you said brainstorm your skills and knowledge. You start making a list of everything that you know something about, which will probably end up being a long list. Everything that you know a fair amount about, everything that comes easy to you, everything or something that might be difficult for other people, but was actually pretty easy for you, something that you look forward to doing that's not necessarily a hobby, but you look forward to doing this particular kind of work, whether it's a technical form of work or whether it's just one part of your work in terms of communication, in terms of follow up, in terms of triaging different tasks. There's a lot of stuff that we could talk about with that, but you start by making a list of all these different things, topics, specialized knowledge, experience, education. Did you go to college? Did you go beyond college? Did you not go to college? Whatever education that you had, what did you learn there? And I don't just mean like your English 101 or your math 101, but what do you feel that you learned in college? If you had to, answer that question, whatever higher education did I have? What did I learn? What would you put down on that list? And there's a lot we could talk about after that, but that's my short answer for that. And Rachel says, check out the Side Hustle book. Thank you. There is a lot of detail in that book as well. Okay, I wanted to share something before we go, which I will do in just a second. I'm just mentioning it so I don't forget it. And let's see what else people have to say. Brock, unconventional guide model. How did you decide to offer an ebook you wrote that you think has good value for free as a marketing tool or for $5, $50, etc.? So just some brief comments here. I like for free or I like $50. I don't really like $5. Especially if you're writing an ebook that is sharing something technical, or you're really helping people with something specific. I used to write ebooks about travel hacking and using frequent flyer miles. I have hundreds of testimonials, if not thousands of people who have, purchased one of the ebooks or were part of the membership site we used to have that we don't have anymore, but used to be there. And they have then been able to fly around the world in first class, have experiences that they otherwise never would have been able to have, for a very small amount of money. So I have those testimonials. I know that value is there. I don't believe in selling it for $5. I'm either going to share it freely, like I've done in lots of ways, or it's going to be more of a premium product. So that's my suggestion to you, depending on what you're selling. You either give it away for free as a marketing tool or you charge a real price for it. We had somebody else that was trying to sell something for $3 the other day. I don't think that's a good idea, usually. Okay, let's do the daily challenge. Then I'm going to share something with you. Might do a couple of other questions, but I'm trying to keep these to about 30 minutes, just so as many people as possible can participate. But daily challenge, been talking a bit about the third way, of course. So the challenge is, as you are evaluating different ideas, consider if these ideas meet those criteria. And it doesn't mean that this is what you have to do. I never tell people this is what you have to do. If your vision is to open that coffee shop or that dry cleaners, that you dreamed of when you were 8 years old, or if you have an idea for a startup that is going to require, a lot of investment and you need a lot of people working on it at the same time, et cetera, then that's fine. Of course, go and do that. However, I find that a lot of people don't necessarily have that vision in the beginning. They're just, or even later, they don't ever have that vision. They're just trying to figure out, how to do the things that I'm talking about here, creating financial security for themselves, being able to quit their job if that's what they want, or at least having the option to quit their job, even if they keep going to the job, but they have this, significant second income coming in, just like the Google employee did, $100,000 from Fiverr. Obviously he can probably kind of do what he wants at this point. So consider, as you develop different ideas, like those who are brainstorming, like Effie mentioned, once we start going from skills to, ideas in terms of products and such, ask yourself, does it meet these criteria? Is it a small amount of money? Can I start quickly? Is it using a skill that I already kind of know about? That's that. Okay, so before I forget, because I tend to be forgetful when I'm in the midst of doing these live conversations and have to keep up with a couple different things. I mentioned for the first time, I think last weekend, so maybe 9 days ago, when I did the virtual book launch with Creative Live, I talked about how, my vision for this book, people are saying it's timely in the sense of now everybody's freaking out about their money and such. I'm like, yes, but I didn't plan to publish a book in the time in which, it's hard to buy products and Amazon is shipping late and 99% of the media attention is on a single topic. So it's not quite like I planned this around a pandemic. But I do really believe that this book can help people who are struggling and trying to figure out, what can I do next? How can I not operate from a place of panic, but how can I actually have hope and optimism for the future, and not just like in a grandiose sense, but a very practical sense. So one of my goals is to get the book out to as many people as possible, including everybody who's not able to afford it, or everybody for whom a $20 purchase would be stressful, which there's actually a lot of people like that out there now, and people who are in debt or otherwise really struggling. So the idea that I had in working together with Nikki, who is on right now, let me see if I can post something real quick here in the chat. And I think there's a way to pin my comments, but I have no idea how to do that, so we're going to figure it out. Nikki, let me know if this is the right link to put there. So we had this idea to create a book registry where we could connect two groups of people, and anybody who is in that place of struggle could go and put their name down to potentially receive a free book, a free copy of the book. And by the way, I should just say that books aren't free. I work with a publisher, so if I want to give out free books, I actually have to buy them. That's how it works. I can't just give out unlimited free copies of my book. And so people can sign up to receive the book for free. And then anybody who wants to can be a book donor and purchase copies for all those people. So you'll be able to go to this website and purchase, 3 copies, 5 copies, whatever copies, whatever you want to purchase. And we're going to have a way to connect those people, the donors, with the recipients, and we're going to send them the books. We're hoping that over time we'll have a lot of stories come out of it and such. And then I'm also donating all my royalties, which are not a whole lot. I can talk about the economics of being an author at some point. But I'm donating 100% of my royalties that go through this process for at least the first 3 months. And I'll also be buying books myself to give to people here. So we are almost ready to kind of roll this out publicly, but not like public. So I wanted to do it here just as a thank you for everybody who has been coming to these streams and participating or just watching passively. So I just put the link up. You can now go and check it out and kind of see how it works. If you'd like to be a donor, you can buy even a single copy for someone, and you should be able to kind of navigate that process and give us some feedback. Let us know if anything doesn't work as well as it should, or if anything was confusing. And then over the next few days, I'll be rolling this out more publicly. But before I said anything about it on social, or before I wrote it to my newsletter or to Side Hustle School about it, I wanted to share it with you. So go and check it out, moneytreebook.com/registry. And Nikki, let me know if there's anything else that we should mention about that in particular, or just feel free to pop it in the chat. And thank you, by the way, Nikki. Nikki has made so many incredible projects for me and with me over the years, so I'm very grateful for that. Okay, today is what? Tuesday, April 14th. Let me know if you have any final comments or questions, and I think I see some stuff here. If I miss your comment, I always go back at the end and read everything. I'm not always able to respond to everything in the actual broadcast, but if you have questions that I haven't answered, I usually think about them in terms of what I'm preparing later. Let's see here. That's good. Oh, Brock said, is it tacky to require an email for a mailing list in exchange for the book if offered for free? Not at all. Not at all. That is a very common practice online, as I'm sure you know, and I don't think it's common because it works. It's common because it works well. And I think it's only tacky if you're misleading people. It's only tacky if you're like, sign up here for the free book, and then they sign up and you're like, just kidding, don't have a free book for you, or whatever the thing is. That would not be cool. But if you're making an offer, then that is totally fair game, I think. Good. Awesome. Yep, Nikki said if anybody has any issues, feel free to reach out. We'll get things straightened out. We're going to try to do a live demo of this maybe tomorrow, but I just thought I would share that with you before we go for the day. Thank you all so much for watching. You're amazing. So grateful to build this with you. Hit the thumbs up button if you have not. Feel free to share this channel with other people. It's just my name, youtube.com/Chris Guillebeau. And I will be back again tomorrow. So in the meantime, think about your project, think about your idea. Does it meet the third way criteria? How could you make $1,000 or whatever the amount is in a short amount of time? And what are you going to do about it? And last but not least, just remember that even though so many things are uncertain, and this is a crazy time, this time doesn't have to define you. You can actually look back at some point and say, wow, that was that whole COVID time was weird, but look what came out of it. I actually made some brave decisions for myself. So that's my hope for myself and for all of you who are watching. So thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful day. I'll be back tomorrow.